Let's get it going, and a good afternoon, everybody. Of course, you are looking live at Picks and Roll, featuring Sixers insider Sean Barnard for the Gambler. I am Sean Brace, and another fun one to get into here with a Sixers victory last night over the Boston Celtics, a match that we discussed at length on the show yesterday, but more so right here on Picks and Roll. And Sean, good afternoon. Nice victory over the Boston Celtics at home, improved to 6-1. I just want to point this out. The headline of this episode right here in Picks and Roll, quote, Sixers with the fun style to play, frustrating to face. That is from Yahoo Sports this morning. What do you say to that? And of course, your thoughts on last night's dub.
Yeah, it's good vibes all across the city, all across the team right now. I think that's a pretty good way to sum it up. That Nick Nurse has turned that from the Sixers being this frustrating team, or the Raptors being the frustrating team for the Sixers. He's starting to convert this team very much into that identity, and it's very clear they won against the Celtics in a way that I have not seen them do in past years. So I'm very excited by last night's result, a statement victory all around.
All right, your big takeaway from we got a lot of great questions from some people that want to get involved, of course, with that's the style of play. Of course, that win last night over Boston. Your big takeaway from the game was what?
I guess their defensive identity is so much different this year, that they have versatile wings. They have guys they can throw at the Jason Tatum and at Jaylen Brown. That both those guys struggled in a major way last night, and the Celtics struggled as a result. Tatum ended with 16 points on 14 shot attempts. Jaylen Brown with 11 points on 13 shot attempts. They really struggled to get things going. Sixers threw different bodies at them. Each of these guys competed. You can see the way that they're trapping, the way that they're bringing a number of faces. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Tyrese Maxey once again looks ready. That he struggled a little bit last night. The Celtics are a team pretty much tailor-made to make life hard on him, but he just fought through it and found a way to compete, found a way to get better, and really came up clutch when it mattered the most. That he changed the game in that fourth quarter, busting out the floater, blowing past Kristaps Porzingis, and ultimately was a major reason why the Sixers won that game. So it was another huge moment of him delivering on the biggest stage.
Yeah, fun fourth quarter. It was getting a little dicey there for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I did see the panic was starting to set in, and rightfully so. This is a team that has blown leads in past, but it just feels like it's a new era without Doc Rivers at the lead, and of course with Nick Nurse here. But some winning plays that we had yesterday. Let's always start with that. First of all, Maxey over his player total finished with 25. That was my play. Over to you, Porzingis over 1.5 3-pointers. I think he attempted 6 of them, if I'm not mistaken, made 2. 2 winners right there. Of course, Sixers came out on top with the money line play. That was plus 125. So we cleaned house yesterday on Picks and Roll.
Yeah, good day all across the board for the most part there. Embiid did let me down a little bit on the rebounding side of things. A little bit interesting how things shook out there. He ended with 10. His number was set at 11.5. But yeah, for the most part, it was a good game, and we're seeing all these guys. Tobias Harris, who we talked a good bit about, delivered once again. That he kept that streak going, despite me being a little bit skeptical there. Kelly Oubre delivered at the moment, and it's just amazing how deep this team is. I truly believe I've never seen a Sixers team as deep as this roster, and it's amazing that we're seeing guys like Furkan Korkmaz got his first quarter minutes, did not play well, and then we didn't see him ever again. Guys like Pat Bev didn't really play for the length of the game, had a couple minutes here and there, and then is in the closing lineup to get a crunch time stop. Like having those type of players that you can interchange, go to when the situation dictates it. Nick Nurse is pulling all the right strings, and he has the guys to do it, which has not been the case in past years.
Of course, Tobias Harris finished with 17. He was over his player prop total. He's done it in every one of the Sixers games this year. That's 7 total, all over his player prop total on DraftKings Sportsbook, with another 17-point performance last night, 9 boards. He did it all, 5 of 12 in 38 minutes. The only one that played more than him in last night's game was Tyrese Maxey. Joel Embiid finished with 37 there. What's going on with Tobias Harris? Is I know we kind of thought yesterday that maybe the offensive output might take a little bit of a hit, maybe just even itself out from what we've seen so far. But, Tobias Harris, the biggest thing about him is the contract, but he's got the deal. He's not going anywhere. Still a pretty decent player. But I want to be honest with it, though, Sean, because a lot of people were upset. A lot of people coming into this year were just like, I'm sick of the same old song and dance. Isn't Tobias Harris still in that category?
Yeah, for sure. The guy that is kind of been one of the main sticking points for frustration around this roster, and a guy that's been here for quite a bit of time now. He is also on a contract year this year, so he has plenty to play for. And I think he's really benefiting from not having James Harden around. That for how much talk there was about Harden being able to optimize him as a scorer, as a corner shooter, he's looking so much comfortable with the freedom to put the ball on the ground, attack a closeout when guys come and force out Harden him. And he is delivering on all these things. When there is that like wing rotation of guys like Tobias Harris, Kelly Oubre, Nick Batum, that's just so much more length and athleticism than when you look at past years when we're talking about like a Danny Green, Georges Niang, and Tobias obviously still there, but that type of rotation. Oubre, I thought, had another really impressive game last night, but just this, I guess, options that they have, and then Tobias specifically, just so much more active as an off-ball mover, as a cutter. He's getting to his spots way better, and he has more freedom as far as he still gets his couple possessions a game where he can kind of just cook in the mid-range and attack a guy in the way that he really loves to do.
So some people are definitely talking about the rotation. Still too early, right? Like, shouldn't Nick Nurse be experimenting in his mind? And in my mind, I think he should. I will just say that straight up. I think, hey, look, we're not even 10 games into the season. I get it, preseason and all that, but it's a whole different ballgame with this regular season. Plus, in-season tournament play, which I just want to point out. Number one, the court's fire. Number two, the intro song with LL Cool J and the Roots. I'm in, bro. I'm in. People better stop talking bad about this tournament. I am in. Adam Silver's got me hooked with the in-season tournament. I kid. But my point is, like, Nick Nurse with the rotation. Nick checking in right here on YouTube. He's putting out his rotation. And I get it. We're all Sixers fans. We want it. Or we want to give our opinion. But I don't think anyone's locking anything in at this point in time. Like, are you to believe that Nick Nurse needs to continue to experiment, evaluate, and then, hey, look, when it comes to All-Star weekend and then afterwards in the second half, then lock it in. If you, of course, want to make it a little sooner, then I'm fine with that as well. If people stand out and you're able to, for lack of a better term, lock into that rotation. But where do you stand right now on Nick Nurse's rotation as far as players off the bench in the starting five?
Yeah, I definitely want to keep seeing some experimentation with. Part of it is just these guys learning everything and getting here. Like the Clippers players specifically, and by that I mean the Nick Batum, Robert Covington, and Marcus Morris, like, and KJ Martin. Like, they've yet to learn the plays completely. And Batum, who led the bench in minutes with 26 off the bench last night and came back in the second half after having a nasty finger injury, which that was just turned the complete opposite way. So shout out him to playing through that. But he talked about, like, Batum has no idea what the plays are yet. He's basically playing with the pass to Joel Embiid offense and then space the floor. But he's such a high IQ guy that he is creating shots for himself with his off-ball movement. I think Batum's going to be a guy that finds his way into the starting lineup. But on the other side of things, there's a player like Kelly Oubre, who I've talked about quite a bit, that I appreciated and like as an aspect of coming off the bench, being this microwave scorer. It's really hard to take him out of the starting lineup right now. That he's playing decisive, he's attacking the basket, he's big, athletic, and he really set the tone last night, took the challenge defensively in a way that I was really impressed with. He set the tone by the opening tip, taking that ball, dunking it, and immediately picking up Jason Tatum right on the inbounds. And I was like, okay, Kelly Oubre has a lot to prove this year. He's another guy who is taking offense to the lack of market for him, that he's the only guy to average 20 points per game last year and be on a minimum deal this year, that he wants that money this offseason, and he's deserving it in the way that he's playing. So at the same time that I do want to see more guys played around with and more options with the starting lineup, it's difficult to take guys like Kelly Oubre out of it. The obvious answer, and guy that I do think will see his time slip moving forward if things continue, is DeAnthony Melton. He's been kind of the lone poor spot on this team so far. He had a really rough game again last night. He shot just 1 for 9 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3, 3 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. Was just not a good Melton game. And I think we're starting to see that with DeAnthony Melton, it was like a step in the right direction towards like modern basketball and modern roster. But now that there's other options and guys that are a little more complete, or I guess a little more just reliable on a night-to-night basis, that he isn't quite the best thing since sliced bread in the way that it looked when he first got here, because now there's more and better options that are in front of him. So I think Melton might be a guy regress to a bench role, but overall there's plenty of bodies that they should give an attempt to.
All right, Sixers' next action will be Friday night on the road in Detroit. Detroit just played the Bucks, came up just short, lost by 2. A team that definitely will it has some skilled players, have some young guns. Definitely no expectations for anything for Detroit Pistons, but it's the NBA. They got studs out there, and they'll make life difficult if you slip up. So hopefully the Sixers will keep the gas pedal going and, of course, come away with that victory against the Detroit Pistons. No number on DraftKings Sportsbook just yet. We'll update that today as soon as we get that. Maybe Milwaukee or maybe Detroit's in action tonight. I'll have to take a look at the card. Actually, there's only 2 games tonight, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think we'll figure it out as far as the numbers are concerned. But from Boston's standpoint, curious if these 2 teams were to match up next week back in Philly. Sixers were an underdog last night. Would you make the change and have the Sixers favored, or would you still say, you know what, Boston, they were favored for a reason. They came up just short. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Where would you go as far as odds makers are concerned?
Yeah, I think if it's another game in Philly, that the Sixers likely shift to the favorite at this point. That I do think these teams are very evenly matched, which is surprising to say at this point based on how these rosters were built and where we expected both to be looking at this point in the season. I don't think either team played their best basketball last night, which I think is intriguing. Neither team shot the ball well. If I want to look at like the team stats as far as 3-point shooting, Sixers just 26.5% from beyond the arc, 9 for 34 there. Celtics 15 for 47, so 31.9%. So not a great shooting night for either team. And what excites me the most from the Sixers perspective is they won this game in a different way than I've ever seen them take down this Celtics team. That they did it in transition, they did it with defense. In past years and the past 2 years under the James Harden regime specifically, they had to be so effective in the half court and essentially just be more efficient in those situations than the Celtics to get a win. They slowed the game down. They made it real deliberate with those type of attacks. That was not at all how they played last night. That they mucked things up defensively. They were flying around. There were bodies everywhere, forcing turnovers, getting in transition. And that's just a very different team than we've seen from the Sixers in past years. Even Embiid, who I talked about yesterday, I was concerned about him having to stretch to the perimeter to guard the Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford, who are comfortable as 3-point shooters. They made a nice, interesting little switch up there that when Embiid shifted out there, rather than him competing back towards the rim to go get a rebound, which this, of course, hurt my rebounding prop, but rather than him do that, he was leaking out on the fast break and trying to get deep post position. It's similar way to kind of what these Spurs are doing with Victor Wembanyama there, and I'm all about that if they want to keep doing that with Joel. If teams are going to force him out on the perimeter as a defender, there's no reason why he shouldn't punish them right back by beating them down the floor and creating an easy bucket. We're seeing more of that last year, and I thought that showed face last night. So a lot of interesting stuff from both sides, but I do think the Sixers are right looking the Celtics eye to eye for the rest of the season.
All right, we got some other comments here. Germ, our guy Germ checking, and he said the most impressive thing is that it wasn't a particular good shooting night, but our attack never changed, and getting second chance buckets is a night and day change from last year. What do you say to that, Sean?
Yeah, for sure. They're competing on the glass, and that's kind of a Nick Nurse characteristic. They've won the rebounding battle, I believe, every single game so far. It was 56 to 43 last night. They had 12 offensive rebounds compared to the Celtics 9. That's all effort numbers. That's guys caring. And a guy that I do want to give a special shout out to that is Patrick Beverley, guy who's the smallest dude on the court, but it feels like he gets every big rebound. Like 6 foot even out there. He comes in the game. He finished with 5 rebounds and 4 assists last night. And he does have these game-changing, and that final possession that the Celtics drew up, Pat Bev was the guy guarding Jason Tatum and ultimately denied him the ball, forcing that shot to Porzingis. That kind of stuff matters to a team. So setting the tone, having these high-effort guys. Kelly Oubre is another guy who really competed on the glass last night. I was very impressed with him. Last night was the first time I'm ready to go fully. I'm on the Kelly Oubre train. He finished with 8 rebounds, only one of them on the offensive glass. Paul Reed had 3 offensive rebounds leading the Sixers in there. But yeah, they're just competing. They're bringing higher effort. And just this athleticism across the board is really showing face. That it's a different story when it is Kelly Oubre and Paul Reed and these athletic bodies going up for an offensive rebound versus the traditional Georges Niang and, what we've seen in past years with some of the older bodies past their prime. So I think it's a combination of the effort, the athleticism, and Nick Nurse really forcing this scheme on these guys.
Once again, DraftKings Sportsbook, and these numbers will change fast. That's why I'm bringing this up here. Not talking about winning it all here. I'm just talking about getting to the NBA Finals, representing the East. You got the 2 top dogs, plus 160 for the Celtics, the Bucks, plus 185. Sixers are now 7-1, plus 700. Like I said, if this continues, again, not on they're only going to lose 10 games this whole season stretch. That would be fun, though.
Yes, what?
But they just knocked off the Boston Celtics, and they took the Bucks in game 1. And, I think as things get a little rolling a little bit smoother for the Sixers. I'm looking forward to that rematch versus the Bucks. I don't know. My point is 7-1 right now. That number's only going to come down. So if you wanted to take a stab at it, to have that in your pocket, Sixers fans, I definitely don't hate that at all.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad ticket to hold on to, and especially as we kind of look forward, I would like to still continue seeing this over a larger sample size and let the season play out. But I do think that there's probably one or two guys this team is still missing. I see it mostly from kind of a creation standpoint, where an additional ball handler, and not just a ball handler, but a guy that can put it on the floor and attack the basket in a way that can create his own offense or create for others. It's very night and day when Tyrese Maxey's on the floor and when he's not right now. And even with solid options behind him, like Pat Bev, who for the most part has done a good job running the offense and being a true point guard, there isn't that dynamic offensive attack that this team is kind of missing. They can add a secondary guy, and part of this is because DeAnthony Melton has played poor, that him playing at his best does answer some of these issues, but I still don't think he's naturally an offensive creator and definitely not gifted as a playmaker. So I think there's a world where adding one of those pieces elevates them right there to a championship title. We're going to be able to watch this play out over the next couple weeks and months as teams fall apart and the Sixers have a clear eye for what they're looking for. But yeah, the fact that they're within a stone's throw of these championship contenders, and by their play, you can't argue that they're within a stone's throw without it as well. So there is a real chance that if these guys continue growing, if everybody plays up to their highest level, that Sixers might not even make a move at all.
All right. Now we're going to be live from 3 to 6 p.m. today on the Daily Ticket. Of course, there's Picks and Roll with Sean Barnard. And I know one topic we're going to get into today, so we'll save that for just a second. But I also am rocking this Eagles shirt because we will be live tonight. Sean Barnard, all the Gambler gang will be live at Patty Wax, hooking the people up with some Miller Lite giveaways for tonight's Thursday night football game between the Panthers and Bears. And we're, like I said, Miller Lite tickets for the 49ers and Eagles game. So come on down, 8 to 10, Patty Wax on South Street tonight. We'll be there hanging out. So if you want to talk some Sixers or any of the other two games that are going off this evening, and that's where I want to get into, come on down, Patty Wax on South Street, 8 to 10 p.m. this evening. All right, two games on the card this evening, Bucks and Pacers. Bucks are 3-point favorites on the road in Indiana. Atlanta and Orlando. There's really not much I want to talk about from last night. If there's something you want to get into, I tuned into the Warriors game. That was fun. And I saw the Lakers get absolutely boat raced by the Rockets. Woo.
Yeah.
Anyways, Hawks and Magic here at 3.5-point spread. Atlanta favored on the road in Orlando. Anything for you on these two games that you're looking out for?
Yeah, I like that Bucks line tonight. I think that tonight is going to be a drop the hammer kind of night for the Bucks. Giannis got ejected last night, which was wild. And by the way, just to make a quick point on this, the referee show to start this NBA season has been out of control. That the text for hanging on the rim, for guys really just protecting themselves from falling. And the worst part about it for me is that you are only slowing down the game further by handing out a technical and making a point of it. Like, the job of the referee is to keep things going, to keep the game under control, and it just takes away from the actual basketball by them throwing these unnecessary technicals and really making the game more about them. To see Giannis thrown out for last night for a very non-demonstrative kind of celebration, that he dunked it, he kind of stared at the guy, and they hit him with a second tech, and he got ejected for that. And that really took the wind out of the sails of the Bucks last night, and that just shouldn't happen on a night-to-night basis. But for tonight specifically, I do think the Bucks are in a get back spot, that they're going to be frustrated after last night. They're a better team than they've played so far this season. It's going to take some time for things to keep clicking, but they still managed to gut out a win last night. So I was impressed by that. I think they really put it down and put the pedal to the metal tonight. So I think it's a good spot for the Bucks in tonight's game.
All right, definitely. We'll have a screen on that. And as I said, with Thursday Night Football, not much happening. Take the under, take the under, take the under. Take the under. Oh, yeah, and a Bajan anytime touchdown. We'll be live tonight, 8 to 10 p.m. Once again, Patty Wax in South Street. One other one here from Nick before we get into this Embiid talk real quick. Nick checking in. What would you say the chances are Maxey could be an all-star starter this year? I think he's got his ticket to the all-star game on lock as a reserve. What about a starter? What do you say to that, Chum? Uh-oh. We might be having
that's
audio
interesting.
issues. Okay, go ahead.
I do think that. Mhm.
Little delay.
Yeah, it is tough. The East is loaded. I do feel really good about Tyrese Maxey's all-star chances as a whole this year, that he's absolutely playing like the part this year. He looks it. He's delivering on a winning team. Starter, I think, is hard when you kind of look down the East. That there is a Damian Lillard. There's guys like Trae Young, Jalen Brunson. There's other guys that could win that starting job. I think Dame's probably the clear-cut favorite for that one. But I do feel good about Maxey punching his ticket to his first All-Star game this year. I really think like he's delivered on every single level, and especially a night like last night, with which the Celtics defense is really built to keep him controlled. That they have guys like Derek White, like Drew Holiday, like Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown spent a good deal of last night guarding Maxey, which is a really tough matchup. A guy who's an all NBA caliber defender and much bigger than Maxey from a pure standpoint. So Maxey did struggle. Like, he shot 11 of 27 from the field, 3 of 11 from three. They did take one make away from him that stunk. They called a foul before he got the shot off, and that was like a logo three for him. But he still ended with 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 25 points, 2 blocks, which was very impressive. He's taking strides as a defender. I wouldn't close the door on him being an all-star starter, and a lot of that comes with team success. If the Sixers keep cruising and Maxey's the co-starter, Joel Embiid, it's hard to argue that he doesn't deserve it.
All right, Sean Barnard. When's the Sixers' first? Oh, that's actually tomorrow night. That's the first in-season tournament game in Detroit. I apologize. I did not know that. So tomorrow is the first one for the Sixers. Once again, keep an eye out for that, for the floor. It's been catching a lot of headlines. A lot of people are not exactly the biggest fans of the floors. I am. I love it. I think it's different. Anything you got to do to change it up. Let's go. One topic that, of course, if you're listening to this right now, we're probably talking about it already, but on the Daily Ticket today, we'll be hitting is that whole story yesterday from NBC Sports Philadelphia that Joel Embiid is the greatest scorer of all time.
Yep.
Which it got a lot of people to come to his defense, which I totally get. I mean, he's our guy. You don't have to tell me. He's right behind me at all times. Love JoJo, and I think he's unbelievably gifted, and long way to go. I hope, right? Like, I didn't think his career would be what it is due to the fact that it started out missing the 2 years. But if you haven't read that article, just give it a glance. Not the longest article, with all due respect. This guy kind of, I think, knew what he was doing, and he kind of at the end was like, he is the what was the word he used? It wasn't the greatest, or it was like the most efficient scorer of all time, which, you know, that doesn't really catch the spotlight. It doesn't give the headlines, doesn't catch the clicks as much, saying the greatest scorer of all time. I don't know. To me, like NBA stats, you can find whatever stat you want, make it work for you. I just got to trust my eyes on this one. And when Joel Embiid's in year 7 and we're talking about being the greatest of anything, long way to go. Plus, on top of that, it didn't include playoff stats, right? It was only 400 regular season games.
Correct.
How can you tell me someone's the greatest scorer of all time and not include the playoffs? You have to include the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very much a Joel Embiid guy, but this is not one that I'm going to bat for him on him being the greatest scorer of all time. Yeah, the playoffs thing's a notable thing, that when you want to think of the greatest scorer, you want to think of a guy that gets it done regardless of the circumstance and regardless of the defense. And while Joel Embiid is up there among the most gifted basketball players ever and will go down as an all-time great, a surefire Hall of Famer, he's on all the proper pathways, MVP, 6-time All-Star, all these things, 2-time scoring champ. The bottom line is, like, he still has way more to prove in this. And one of my frustrations with NBA media as a whole is you can kind of manipulate numbers just about any way you want. I have to wear the L on the Nikola Jokic versus Joel Embiid discussion at this point in time for sure. But there was a lot of those numbers being maneuvered to make Jokic look better than Embiid. I think this is done in a similar way, but from a different mindset of making Embiid look like the greatest scorer. We talked a little bit yesterday about them using the per 36 numbers. And the reason that that's kind of crazy is Embiid's a guy who is more limited with his minutes and has been throughout his career. So his numbers get increased with the per 36. Compare that to a guy like Michael Jordan, who is viewed by most people as the greatest basketball player of all time. His per 36 numbers get shrunk down because he plays more than 36 minutes per night, or did during his playing career. So as much as that's looked at as a way to kind of even the playing field, it kind of doesn't result in that when you think about it from that standpoint of some guys getting a boost and some guys getting it taken away. So I do love Joel Embiid. I'm very happy with everything that he's brought, and he definitely deserves to be in the conversation for all that he's done. But I don't think we can quite crown him the greatest scorer of all time just yet.
You would think we learned our lesson, too, as Philadelphia media last year with everything that took place, as you said, with Joker and the egg that we had on our face, but apparently some didn't. And my biggest takeaway was like so many people wanted to move the goalpost, and like I said, he's our guy. I'm with you. Like I'm not telling you he's terrible. No one is telling you he's awesome. He's gonna, as you just said, he's gonna go down in history no matter what, even if he doesn't play another game. But come on, we're talking about the greats here. I can give you 3 players right now in this game today that I would take as a greatest, as a more prolific scorer, a better scorer, a guy that I would rather have the final shot. Kevin Durant, LeBron, Steph Curry. I mean, like, that's not really earth shattering there. That's not a hot take. Those are 3 greats. Those are 3 surefire Hall of Famers, guys that have been doing it a hell of a lot longer than Joel Embiid, with all due respect to it as well. Looks like we just lost Sean Barnard there. All right. Well, anyways, look, bottom line is this. You can follow Sean, as always, at Sean_Barnard1. And as we continue to do bigger and better things here on The Gambler, everything will be available at foxphogambler.com. Be sure to check us out 3 to 6 p.m. today in the Daily Ticket. Roy Burton's going to be joining us in studio as well. And once again, live down at Patty Wax on South Street. There he is. Hello, Sean. Final thoughts?
Yeah, back at it. Patty Wax will be fun tonight, so looking forward to that. But I will say, to put a bow on the Joel Embiid kind of scoring conversation here, is he needs more of these signature moments. I think that as much as you want to throw stats, like there is like the eye test, as we say. And I do think last night was one of those moments where it was cool to see, with it being a 4-point game coming down to the wire, where Embiid took it upon himself to command the ball no matter who was guarding him. He ultimately got the one-on-one matchup with Jason Tatum. It took him getting all the way out to the 3-point line to get that ball, and then he immediately just puts Tatum in the back seat, backs him down 15 feet to the basket, and hits a nice turnaround jumper. That's the stuff, when you do that in big moments, that makes you the greatest scorer ever. So keep adding those to the highlight reel, keep adding those to the mix, and I would certainly love to bookend this conversation, revisit it in a couple of years, and be surefire on the pathway of defending Joel Embiid. We're just not quite there yet.
Yeah, sure. Let's get the double digits, right? Like, to me, if you're going to say greatest of anything, you got to talk about longevity. You got to be involved in it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a Jordan guy, but to see what LeBron is doing still at this age, like,
It's incredible.
You gotta be honest with your evaluation and say, dude, he's a freak of nature, and he's still playing at the highest level. He's still the best player on the floor, depending on who they're going up against. He can get his shot anytime he wants. Yeah, the hops aren't really. He's got the old man 2-hander. That's his go-to anymore. But still, I'm not trying to say anything negative about LeBron James' jumping ability, but like you eventually, if he continues to do what he's doing, for crying out loud, breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record last year was unbelievable. Like, to top that number was just crazy. So it's like, even I'm the big Jordan guy, and it's like, eventually, if LeBron continues to do this, that's definitely gonna change the conversation for me. But still Jordan's greatest of all time. Don't want to change that. Don't want to mix that up for anybody. But I will say this. You got to have at least 10 years of service if we're talking about the GOAT of anything. I think that's a fair number.
No, I have no problem with setting the bar at that for now. So I do like the stir in the pot. I do like the Joel Embiid's at least in this conversation. That's enough of a hat tip moment for him, I think, or should be at this point in his career. But yeah, I think it's a little premature to start crowning him like that. And we'll see where the rest of his career goes from here, because I've said many a times that it's amazing that he can do these things, lead the NBA in scoring back-to-back years. But I still think that there's a version of Joel Embiid that could be his best as a player. That's him a little bit past his prime, where he's more of a defensive and rebounding focused player, where he really sets the tone on that defensive side of the ball and is still capable of getting a bucket whenever the team needs. And that comes with Tyrese Maxey continuing to evolve. So I think there's many more chapters in this Joel Embiid story. I'm excited to see how it writes itself.
You the man, Sean Barnard, Sean_Barnard1. That's the number 1. Be sure to follow him. I appreciate Jerm and Nick and everyone else checking in. Luke was at the top as well. Once again, we'll be live tonight at Patty Wax at South Street from 8 to 10 p.m. Come on out and win those Miller Lite tickets to the Eagles and Niners game. For Sean Barnard, I am Sean Brace. We'll talk to you tomorrow with a brand new Picks and Roll, all things in season tournament. Let's go. Yeah.